That when I want to run Guy's telethon, I have earned that right.
But you could, oh, that's interesting. But because the point is you could be calling it something like, I don't know, NextWeb or TechCrunch or, you know, and not Guy Kawasaki. Is that your ego here? Or?
No, that's not my ego. That is my brand. You have your brand, leweb, and, you know, there's TechCrunch, but that's just who I am. And so I'm constantly trying to provide great content so that when I publish a book, I can promote that book. When I invest in a company, when I advise, like when I'm an advisor to Evernote. And so when Evernote comes out with this great wireless scanner, there's next, right? Great wireless scanner, I promote that scanner. One of my favorite social media products of all is Buffer, because Buffer enables me to schedule posts to LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Google+. So right now I'm 9 hours ahead of most of my readers, but I can buffer things so that they will post at 8 a.m. Pacific.
But don't you lose kind of the interactivity with that? That you're like you've already pre-posted 9 hours of your post?
No.
But do you read the mentions? Do you reply?
I read the comments. Whenever someone replies as Guy Kawasaki, it really is Guy Kawasaki. No one responds for me, but people do post as me, particularly in Twitter. And so all the responses are me. And so my model, again, is NPR. I want to earn the right to promote by providing great curation. That's my model. And very few people agree with that model. One of the other consequences of this model
is... Because you post many times too, right?
Yes.
Do you still do that?
In Twitter, most of my tweets are repeated 4 times, 8 hours apart. And if you told that to...
Who thinks it's okay to do this, like posting 4 times?
Oh, see, a year ago, everybody was saying not at all.
Well, you had only 10 people, like, who thinks it's not cool to post 4 times?
Who of you have gaining followers?
Yeah.
So here's my theory behind it.
Challenging you, little guy.
So, look, feel free, it's your conference. So I post, most of my tweets go out 4 times, 8 hours apart, and it's because I do not believe that everybody who the tweet is relevant to is awake and at the computer at the moment that I tweeted. And even I am not so arrogant as to believe people are going to scroll back through tweets, thousands of tweets, to find that pearl of a tweet that I posted. And so if you look at CNN, if you look at NPR, if you look at ESPN, if you look at all these channels, they repeat their stories. It's because you can't assume that everybody who's interested in the thing is awake and at the computer at the same time. And I can prove to you that, you know, if I tweet once, I get X clicks, and if I tweet 4 times, I get 4X clicks. So guess what? And so, okay, so now, you know, the vast majority of you think this is wrong, but I will tell you, I mean, let me put it to you another way. Would you like to increase clicks by 4 times? Yes. How many of you who have had your hands up are now, you know, changing your mind? Because it is literally 4X. Now, you will piss some people off with this. I grant you that. But at any given point on social media, somebody's always pissed off with you, right? And I could make the case that if you're not pissing people off on social media, you're probably not using it hard enough. You should be pissing people off.
Oh, trust me, I know. We should take some questions. Anyone has a question? Yeah, here, okay, great, awesome. So that's what I wanted to do for a long time. Here.
I was just wondering, what's the limit then? Why 4 times? Why not 8 times? That becomes really annoying afterwards?
You know, if I had a really organized mind, I could create 8 different links and monitor the 8 different links. As it is, I probably am violating the Twitter terms of service, right? Because you're not supposed to repeat any. So I just think if I go from 4 to 8, you know, that just might be pushing the edge even for me. So to use the NPR metaphor, that would be like NPR having a telethon every week. You know, NPR has a telethon, I think, 3 or 4 times a year. That's probably the limit. I think for me, 4 times is the limit. You know, I could make the case that when people complain that they saw my same tweet more than once, I counter them and I say, well, you know, if you saw this tweet 2 or 3 times, 8 hours apart, it means, almost by definition, you don't have a life. Right? I mean, that's pretty sad. If you saw my tweet twice, you were on for 16 hours, that says more about you than me. So, usually they shut up after that.
Okay, I'd like to move a little from social media, but I'll get another question. By the way, you can take questions from the room as well. We have a microphone going around. But entrepreneurship. Give me some advice. Give us some advice. These are entrepreneurs.
Okay.
What's the top 3 advice that, because I know you had a lot of talks.
Okay. So I happen to love entrepreneurship. I think the most important piece of advice I can give you is the most important thing an entrepreneur can do is make a prototype. As opposed to make a PowerPoint pitch, make an Excel projection, or make a Word business plan. The most important thing is to build a prototype. And if you build a prototype and people like it, you may never have to create a pitch, you may never have to create a plan, you may never have to create a forecast. And let's face it, most PowerPoint pitches and plans and forecasts are total bullshit, right? I mean, everybody's saying in year 5 we're going to be doing roughly $100 million because they figure that if they say $100 million, it's interesting. If they say $500 million, it looks delusional. If you say $25 million, you think you're not interesting enough. So everybody says $100 million. That could be shrimp farming, social media, cure for cancer, whatever it is. They all say that. So number 1 piece of advice is, nothing against Microsoft Office, but the most important thing you could do is make a prototype. That leads to a corollary, which is the most powerful presentation you could make to a potential investor is to show a prototype that is already being used or being consumed or being subscribed to. That beats any PowerPoint pitch. A demo, and you can say 10,000 people are signing up for this per month.
What's the company you invested in that you're most excited about? With a prototype like that can. Did you invest in Evernote?
I did not invest in Evernote. I'm an advisor, which is an even more scalable plan. If you think about it. So number 1 piece of advice is prototype. I would say number 2 piece of advice, particularly here in Europe, that a European entrepreneur's perspective should be to create a product or service that is so great that the Americans in Silicon Valley want to copy it. Okay? That is very different than saying, I am a French entrepreneur and I'm going to create a French version of eBay or Vine or Snapchat or go down the list. The right perspective for an entrepreneur, I believe, anywhere in the world is to create a product or service that is so great that Americans want to copy.
Well, and there are a few. I mean, there is Spotify, there is SoundCloud.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think so many entrepreneurs, they look at American models and they say, well, we're going to do the French version of something from Silicon Valley. And you're aiming too low.
That sounds like a past to me, I think.
Yeah? Okay, great.
I think we moved on from that.
The 3rd piece of advice I would give an entrepreneur...
By the way, saying this here is going to upset everybody, but it's okay,
Why?
Like you're like the American coming here and saying, hey, stop copying the Americans.
No, but that... You see, you're so French. You just took that completely wrong.
Yeah!
I just paid you guys the greatest compliment. You took it as an insult. What is it? I don't understand it.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say, this is the most humbling thing an American could say. I am an American saying that you guys could have better ideas than us, so don't limit yourself to the stupid American ideas.
Yes.
Use your own ideas.
I got it. Took me twice, but I got it.
Okay, well, eventually. My 3rd piece of advice is you should never ask anyone to do something that you would not do as an entrepreneur. And that means you don't ask your employees to do something you wouldn't do. You don't ask your customers to do something you wouldn't do. You don't ask your vendors to do something. You don't ask your partners to do something you wouldn't do. I think it's a very important test. I think many entrepreneurs, when they get too close to their company, they think, well, we have such a great website, we have such great functionality, we're giving it away for free, so people won't mind filling out 25 fields of information just to get a free account. And if you think about it, you probably wouldn't do that, so why are you asking your customers to do that? I think it's a very important thing. By the way, it's a test that Apple fails every day now, but that's a different subject. But I think it's very important that entrepreneurs have that attitude.
Do you have a next point? No, but
three. I think in threes, tricode it. I came, I saw, I conquered.
How about the idea itself? I know you've been talking a lot about that. Like finding an idea. I'm in it right now. Because I have this I have this event, but I like to start businesses too. Yeah. And honestly, I've been trying to, it's been like a long time that I tell entrepreneurs you should launch as fast as possible. Reid Hoffman of LinkedIn says if you are not ashamed of your product, when you launch it, you launch too late, which I think is an awesome quote. But how about the idea itself? If you think about Airbnb, they were not looking for making something like Airbnb. They were in San Francisco, there were no hotel rooms. People needed hotel rooms, and they started sharing their own room. That's how Airbnb started. If you think about Twitter, it's the same. If you go into the history of Twitter, it starts as they're not looking to make something like Twitter. Jack just was playing with the service, right? Right. So how do you? What's your advice in finding ideas?
This is some wisdom that I ripped off from Michael Moritz of Sequoia Capital, and he once told me that the richest vein for Sequoia's investments, and to say it's the richest vein for Sequoia's investments is saying a lot, right? Because Sequoia has been so successful. And he said the richest vein is two guys, two gals in a garage or a dorm room who are building the product that they want to use. So two guys building a search engine they want to use, two guys, gals building a personal computer they want to use, two guys, gals building a website they want to use. That's the richest vein for Sequoia. And I completely agree with that. And now that is very different from going to a conference, listening to 50-year-old white men tell you that this is the future of technology, therefore you should go and build this product. It's completely contrary to that. So the scenario here is you and your buddy in a dorm room, in a bedroom, in a garage, you create the product that you want to use, and then you hope like hell that you're not the only two people in the world who want to use it. And I think that is the richest vein for tech entrepreneurship.
Thank you. Any questions? Yeah? Sure.
Hi, how are you? My name is Mohammed Johani. I come from Dubai, and my question, are you considering any investments in our region in the Middle East, or any involvement, regardless whether be it investments or supporting startups and entrepreneurs in the Middle East with your experience? And the other question, the link in the Facebook for the startup competition doesn't work, so if you can give us another link.
I'll fix that right now.
Because we have a startup that would like to participate.
Okay.
So the question for me is investments in Dubai?
At least, either investments or involvement.
I am not a very active investor at all right now. I advise a lot of companies, and it's companies that I just happen to fall in love with. It's completely an emotional decision. And I like to stay relatively involved with the company, and so just the logistics of getting to the Middle East are too difficult for me. I've never been to Dubai, so it's hard for me. And speaking as a Silicon Valley person, there's so many ways we can lose money within 1 hour of where we are. I don't know why we have to go on a plane and lose money, 18 hours from where we are. And that's kind of the issue, that investing, I think, to this day is kind of a local phenomenon. Having said that, just as I said that if you're here, you should have an idea that's not simply a copy of an American idea, I would say the same for you. That you have some natural advantages there and should take advantage of that. I don't think you need to be in Silicon Valley anymore to be successful. I mean, the world truly is flat.
You better get that one.
Next question.
Yeah.
Anyone? Here?
So this question is both for you and the previous speaker. Is intellectual property at all a factor, or is it completely irrelevant and everybody's secret bedfellow? What do you think?
How do I say this without getting in too much trouble? The scenario in which intellectual property might be very valuable for you is if a large company buys you for your intellectual property. Okay? Having said that, if I were sitting across the table from an entrepreneur and I brought up the question of defensibility, and if they said that their defensibility is focused or built upon patents, I would laugh at them. I think the ideal number of times that you use the word patent in a presentation is 1, which is you say we have a patent pending. If you wanted to impress most investors, you would say we have a patent pending, however, we do not believe that it is a key part of our defensibility. The key parts of our defensibility are our aggressiveness, our ability to work hard, our understanding of the market, and our willingness to change in order to make this company successful. Because for most people, the amount of money and time it would take to successfully litigate is just totally irrelevant for a startup. Every once in a while you hear a story about, Microsoft was sued by a little company in, wherever. A little company in Calabasas, California, and sued Microsoft, and Microsoft lost $50 million in this lawsuit. And the reason why you read a story like that is because it never happens. It is news. And so if you were to go to your investors and say, well, our business model is we're going to create this technology, and then a large technology company is going to copy us, and we're going to sue them successfully. That is our business model. You probably won't get funded. I think the key is to create a company and make it scale.
You're an investor yourself.
Yes.
How do we get you to invest in those guys? How do I contact you to get you to invest?
My email is guy@motorola.com. It's a very easy email to remember. I try to invest in things that I would use, basically. So, for example, Buffer. I use Buffer every day. I use Evernote every day. So those are the kinds of things. I don't know a thing about enterprise software. I don't know a thing about life sciences.
So then you don't invest. Someone shows up with an Excel all the time.
I like to lose money in things I understand. I love social media.
So let's take this upside down. What is it that you need that doesn't exist yet? So we build it.
I'm kind of a happy guy right now. I don't, but there's actually a deeper question than what you just said, which is, can you always identify a need for a tech startup? And the answer to that is no. Because in many cases, the need appeared afterwards. And this is something that Apple does particularly well, right? They create a product and they either anticipated a need or they created the need after the fact. But there was no demonstrable need at the time. And that is a key part of entrepreneurship. So for me sitting here...
You mean people sometimes start things that we don't need, and that's why they fail. They invent the problem, right? It's a very common tech thing to do.
I think they do that, but that's also the vein for a very successful company also. That like right now, if you only, I suppose you could say, well, there's a real big need for better batteries. Okay? It's kind of obvious. Better batteries would be really great, right? But there must be 500 companies working on that. There is a demonstrated need for that. Would I do that right now? Probably not. I'd much rather two of you in some garage or some dorm or some apartment or some spare bedroom be creating something that I have no idea I need. But then when I see it, I just fall in love. That's like the first time I used Google+, I fell in love, right? There was like no need. I didn't need another way to express myself. I didn't need another social media platform. I already had Twitter, I had Facebook, I had all this stuff. Did I need Google+? Not at all. I just fell in love with Google+.
That doesn't make any sense, guy.
I want to fall in love. What's wrong with that?
Oh, nothing. We are in Paris.
Yeah, right.
We had two participants, Michael Schneider and Kate. They're here. I want to take them on stage, get them on stage, because they met here a few years ago and they got engaged 2 days ago.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, that's the best you guys. So nothing wrong with that.
Are you getting 10% of them?
Of the wedding? Any question? Save me. Yes. Thank